used to work the night shift at a gas station just off Route 9. It was one of those old places that hadn't been updated since the 90s. The kind with flickering fluorescent lights and a bathroom you had to give customers a key for. The pay was decent for what it was, and most nights were dead quiet. I'd just sit behind the counter, watch stuff on my phone, and ring up the occasional trucker or late-night traveler. Easy money. That changed about 3 months into the job. It started with this guy who came in around 2 a.m. He didn't buy anything. He just walked around the store, looking at the shelves but never picking anything up. I watched him on the security monitor. He'd stop in each aisle, turn his head toward the camera, and just stare. Not at the products, at the camera. After maybe 10 minutes he left, didn't say a word to me. I thought it was weird, but working nights you see weird people. I didn't think much of it. He came back the next night, same time, same routine, walking the aisles, staring at the cameras. This time when he left, he stopped at the door and looked back at me. He smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. I told my manager about it the next day. He just shrugged and said if the guy wasn't stealing or causing trouble, there wasn't much we could do. Just keep an eye on him, he said. Real helpful. The third night, the guy came in again, but this time he walked straight to the counter. He stood there, not saying anything, just looking at me. Up close, I could see his eyes were bloodshot and he had this smell on him. Not body odor. Something chemical, like cleaning supplies. Can I help you? I asked. He leaned forward. You work here every night? Most nights, I said, already regretting answering. You're here alone? I felt my stomach drop. My manager's in the back. I lied. He smiled again, that same smile. No, he's not. Then he left. I locked the door after that. I know you're not supposed to, but I didn't care. I texted my manager and told him what happened. He didn't respond until the next morning, telling me I couldn't lock the doors during business hours. I thought about quitting. I really did. But I needed the money, and I figured maybe the guy got whatever he wanted out of creeping me out. Maybe he wouldn't come back. I was wrong. Fourth night, he came back, but this time he brought someone with him. Another guy, taller, wearing a hoodie. They didn't come inside. They just stood at the gas pumps, staring at the store. At me. I called the police. Told them 2 guys were loitering and making me uncomfortable. The dispatcher said they'd send someone when they could, but it was a busy night. No one came. The 2 guys stayed there for over an hour, just standing, watching. Around 3:30 a.m., a truck pulled in to get gas, and they finally left. I watched them walk across the parking lot toward the woods behind the store. I didn't sleep that day. I kept thinking about what the first guy said. You're here alone. The way he said it, like he was confirming something. I asked my manager if I could switch to day shifts. He said no. We were short-staffed on nights. The 5th night, I almost didn't go in. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, trying to convince myself to just drive home. But I needed this job, I needed the paycheck, so I went inside. Everything was normal until around 1 a.m. That's when the lights started flickering. Not just the fluorescents inside, the big lights outside over the pumps. They'd flicker, go dark for a few seconds, then come back on. I checked the breaker. Everything looked fine. I went back to the counter, and that's when I saw him on the security monitor. The first guy. He was standing at the edge of the parking lot, right where the light barely reached, just standing there in the dark, watching the store. I picked up the phone to call the police. The line was dead. I tried my cell phone. No signal. I had full bars 10 minutes ago. The lights went out completely, inside and outside. The only light was from the emergency exit sign and my phone screen. I heard the front door open. I'd locked it. I know I'd locked it. I ducked behind the counter, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. I could hear footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving through the aisles. Then I heard his voice. I know you're here. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. You should have quit when you had the chance. The footsteps got closer. I could see his shadow on the wall, cast by the exit sign. He was right on the other side of the counter. That's when I heard it. A car pulling into the lot. Headlights swept through the windows. The footsteps stopped. The lights came back on. I stood up. The store was empty. The front door was closed, locked. But on the counter, right where I'd been sitting, there was a note. See you tomorrow night. I didn't go back. I called my manager from my car and quit over the phone. He was pissed, said I was screwing him over, but I didn't care. That was 4 years ago. I still drive past that gas station sometimes, on my way to my new job. Day shift, office building, lots of people around. Last week I drove by at night. There was a new guy working the counter. Young guy, maybe 19 or 20, and standing at the edge of the parking lot, barely visible in the dark. I saw someone watching the store. I didn't stop. I should have warned him. I know I should have, but I just kept driving. I still think about that sometimes. I wonder if he's okay, but I'm too afraid to go back and find out. I worked the front desk at a budget hotel off Interstate 40. It wasn't anything fancy. 2 floors, maybe 60 rooms, mostly truckers and people passing through who didn't want to spend much money. The night shift was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. It was just me at the desk. No housekeeping, no manager, nobody. If something went wrong, I had a number to call, but otherwise I was on my own. Most nights were quiet. I'd check people in, hand out keys, deal with the occasional noise complaint. Between that, I'd watch TV on my laptop or do homework. I was in community college at the time. The hotel had a weird layout. The first floor was normal, but the second floor had this long hallway that curved at the end. You couldn't see all the way down it from the stairs. There was also a side exit at the far end that was supposed to stay locked from the outside. Room 214 was at the end of that curved hallway. I'd been working there for about 2 months when the first weird thing happened. It was a Tuesday night, really slow. Only about 10 rooms were occupied. Around 1 a.m., the phone at the front desk rang. It was an internal call from one of the rooms. I answered. "Front desk, how can I help you?" Silence, just breathing. "Hello?" I said. The breathing continued for maybe 5 seconds. Then they hung up. I checked the caller ID on the phone system. It was from room 214. According to my computer, room 214 was vacant, had been vacant for 3 days. I figured maybe the phone was malfunctioning. Old hotel, old equipment, it happens. But then it rang again. Same room. This time when I answered, I heard something, not breathing, a voice, whispered, barely audible. "Help me." Then it hung up. I stared at the phone. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe someone snuck into the room somehow. But I checked the key log. Room 214 hadn't been accessed in days. I didn't want to go up there, but I had to check it out. If someone was actually in that room, I needed to know. I grabbed the master key and went upstairs. The second floor hallway was quiet. Most of the occupied rooms were on the first floor. Up here it felt empty, dead. I walked down the curved hallway to room 214. I stood outside the door and listened. Nothing. I knocked. "Hotel staff. Is anyone in there?" No answer. I used the master key and opened the door. The room was dark. I flipped on the light. Empty. The bed was made. Everything was clean. No signs that anyone had been there. But the phone was off the hook. I walked over and hung it up. My heart was pounding. I did a quick check of the bathroom and the closet. Nothing. I left and locked the door behind me. Back at the front desk, I tried to focus on my homework. I kept glancing at the phone, waiting for it to ring again. It didn't, not that night. But the next night, same thing. 1 a.m. the phone rang. Room 214. This time I didn't answer. I just let it ring. It rang 15 times before it stopped. Then it rang again immediately. I picked up. Heavy breathing. Then that same whispered voice. "Why won't you help me?" I hung up. I was done with this. I called my manager and told him what was happening. He said he'd have maintenance check the phone line in the morning. He didn't sound concerned. The phone calls kept happening. Every night. Always at 1 a.m. Always from room 214. I stopped answering. But one night, about a week after it started, I heard something else. Footsteps. Above me. On the second floor. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Walking down the hallway toward the stairs. I watched the stairwell. No one came down. The footsteps stopped. I checked the computer. No one had checked in. All the second floor rooms except 2 were vacant, and those guests were both in rooms on the opposite end from 214. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security camera app. We had cameras in the hallways. I switched to the second floor feed. The hallway was empty, but as I watched, one of the doors opened. Room 214. It opened slowly, just a few inches. Then it stopped. No one came out. The door just stayed open. I was terrified, but I was also angry. This was getting ridiculous. I went upstairs with my phone in my hand, ready to call 911 if I needed to. When I got to the second floor, the door to 214 was closed. I checked it, locked. I unlocked it and went inside. The room looked exactly the same as always. Clean, empty, untouched. But it was cold, like really cold. Way colder than the rest of the hotel. I could see my breath. I checked the thermostat. It was set to 72, same as every other room. But it felt like it was 50 degrees in there. That's when I noticed something on the bathroom mirror. There was condensation on it, like someone had just taken a hot shower. And in the condensation, someone had written something. 2 words. "Help me." I backed out of the room and slammed the door. I went straight back to the front desk and called my manager. I didn't care that it was 2 a.m. I told him I was leaving and he needed to find someone else to cover the shift. He threatened to fire me. I told him to go ahead. I was packing up my stuff when I heard it. We had an old elevator that barely worked. It made this loud grinding noise whenever it moved. I heard it going up to the 2nd floor. I watched the floor indicator above the elevator doors. It reached the 2nd floor and stopped. Then it started coming back down. I should have left. I should have walked out the front door right then. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching the numbers. 2nd floor. The elevator doors opened. Nobody was inside, but there were wet footprints on the elevator floor, leading out into the lobby, leading toward the front desk. I ran. I left everything. My laptop, my backpack, my keys. I just ran to my car and drove away. I called my manager the next morning and quit. He tried to convince me to come back, said I'd overreacted. I told him to check room 214 himself if he thought I was overreacting. He stopped trying to convince me after that. I heard from another employee a few weeks later that they'd sealed off room 214, didn't rent it out anymore. The hotel eventually went out of business about a year after I left. I drove past it recently. The building's still there, but it's been abandoned for years now. The parking lot is empty. The sign is dark. But when I looked up at the 2nd floor, I could swear I saw someone standing in the window of room 214. I didn't stop to make sure. I worked night security at a distribution warehouse for about 8 months. It was a huge building, maybe 200,000 square feet, filled with rows and rows of shelving units that went up about 30 feet high. During the day, there were maybe 50 people working there, forklift drivers, pickers, managers, but at night, it was just me. My job was simple. Walk the perimeter every hour, check the loading docks, make sure no one broke in. The rest of the time, I could sit in the security office and watch Netflix or whatever. It paid $17 an hour, which was good money for basically doing nothing. The security office was at the front of the building, near the main entrance. It had a wall of monitors, showing feeds from cameras placed throughout the warehouse. Most of them didn't work. Out of 20 cameras, maybe 6 actually showed a picture. The first few weeks were fine, boring, but fine. I'd do my walks, see nothing, go back to the office. The warehouse was climate controlled, so it was always the same temperature, always the same humming sound from the ventilation system. It was so quiet in there at night that you could hear everything. Your footsteps echoed. The building would settle and creak. Sometimes the metal shelving would make these pinging sounds as it expanded or contracted. You get used to it. But then I started hearing other sounds. It started about a month in. I was doing my 2 a.m. walk when I heard it. Footsteps, not mine. Someone else walking in one of the aisles. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I called out, "Hello, someone there?" Nothing. I figured it was just the building settling or my imagination. I finished my walk and went back to the office. On the monitors, I checked every camera that worked. Nothing. Just empty aisles and stacked pallets. The next night I heard it again, this time during my midnight walk. Footsteps, definitely footsteps, coming from somewhere deeper in the warehouse. They were moving fast, like someone was running. I radioed to my supervisor. We had a protocol for this. If I suspected a break-in, I was supposed to call it in and wait for police, not confront anyone myself. My supervisor asked if I saw anything on the cameras. I checked. Nothing. He told me to do a full walk of the building and report back. So I did. I walked every main aisle, checked every loading dock, looked in the bathrooms and break rooms. Everything was locked up tight. No signs of anyone. But I kept hearing those footsteps, always just out of sight, always in the next aisle over. I told my supervisor. He sighed and said the building makes noise at night, that I was probably just hearing echoes of my own footsteps. He sounded annoyed, like I was wasting his time. Maybe he was right, maybe I was just psyching myself out. But then things started moving. I'd come in for my shift and things would be in different places. A forklift that was parked by the loading dock would be in the middle of an aisle. Pallets would be knocked over. One time I found a trail of boxes leading from the back of the warehouse all the way to the front entrance. Like someone had been moving them one by one. I reported it every time. My supervisor started getting mad at me. He said the day shift was probably just leaving things messy, and I was blaming it on ghosts. He told me to stop calling him unless it was a real emergency. I stopped reporting it, but it kept happening. The footsteps got more frequent. I'd hear them every night now, multiple times during my walks, and they were getting closer. Before, they were always distant, in another part of the warehouse. Now they sounded like they were in the same aisle as me. I started rushing through my walks. I'd jog through the warehouse, check everything as fast as I could, and get back to the office. I felt safer in there. It had a door that locked, windows I could see out of. One night, around 3 a.m., I was in the office watching the monitors when I saw something on camera 4. It was pointed down one of the main aisles. Someone walked past. I only saw them for a second, just a figure moving quickly across the frame, but it was definitely a person. My heart was pounding. I grabbed my flashlight and my radio and went to that aisle. It took me maybe 2 minutes to get there. When I arrived, there was no one. But there were wet footprints on the floor. They led deeper into the warehouse. I followed them. I know I shouldn't have. I should have called the police right then, but I needed to know what was going on. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. The footprints led me to the very back of the warehouse, to a section we called the overflow area. It's where we kept old inventory that hadn't moved in months or years. Nobody went back there except during annual inventory counts. The footprints stopped at one of the shelving units. I shined my flashlight up. The shelves went up into darkness. And on the third shelf up, maybe 12 feet off the ground, I saw someone crouching there, looking down at me. I ran. I didn't think. I just turned and ran as fast as I could back to the security office. I could hear footsteps behind me, running, chasing me. I got to the office and slammed the door shut, locked it. I was breathing so hard I thought I'd throw up. I called 911, told them someone was in the building. They said they'd send officers. I watched the monitors while I waited. Camera 4 showed the main aisle. I saw the figure again. They were walking toward the front of the building, toward the office, toward me. The police showed up maybe 10 minutes later. I met them at the front entrance and told them everything. They searched the entire building. Took them over an hour. They didn't find anyone. No signs of a break-in. No wet footprints. Nothing. One of the officers asked me if I'd been drinking. I hadn't. He told me that sometimes working nights alone can mess with your head, that I should talk to my supervisor about getting a partner. After they left, I sat in my car for a long time. I didn't want to go back inside, but I needed this job. I had rent due in 3 days. I went back in, did my walks, kept my head down, tried to ignore the sounds. At 6 a.m. the day shift started arriving. I'd never been so happy to see other people. I told my supervisor what happened. He was pissed that I'd called the cops, said it made the company look bad. He told me if I called them again without finding actual evidence of a break-in, I'd be fired. I quit the next day. I found out later, after I'd already left, that I wasn't the first night security guard to report weird stuff in that warehouse. I was the 4th one in 2 years. They'd all quit suddenly, just like me. The company never mentioned that during my interview. I guess they wouldn't have found anyone to work nights if they had. Sometimes I wonder who's working there now, if they hear the footsteps, if they've seen the figure on the cameras. I hope they're smarter than I was. I hope they quit before they see what's on those shelves in the back. I worked as a parking attendant at a downtown parking garage. 5 levels, about 300 spaces. During the day it was packed with office workers and people visiting the businesses nearby. At night it was mostly empty. My shift was midnight to 8 a.m. There was a small booth on the ground level where I'd sit. My job was to take payments from anyone leaving, help people if they got locked out of their cars, and do walking rounds every 2 hours to make sure everything was secure. The pay wasn't great, but it was an easy job. I'd bring my tablet, watch movies, listen to music. Most nights I'd only see 5 or 6 cars come and go. The garage had this design where each level was open on the sides, no walls, just concrete barriers. You could see out into the city, and if you were on the upper levels, you could look down into the levels below. It was one of those older garages, built in the 70s. The lighting was bad. Lots of dark spots between the cars. The stairwells were even worse. Narrow concrete with lights that only worked half the time. I'd been working there for about 6 weeks when things started feeling off. It was small stuff at first. I'd do my rounds and find cars parked in different spots than where they were before. I figured people were just moving their cars around, even though that didn't make much sense at 3 a.m. Then I started finding things. Personal items left behind. A jacket draped over a concrete barrier. A backpack sitting in an empty parking space. One time, a pair of shoes, just sitting there in the middle of the third level. I'd take these items back to the booth and log them in the lost and found. No one ever came to claim them. The garage had security cameras, but most of them didn't work. The ones that did work were pointed at the entrance and exit, nothing covering the upper levels. About 2 months in, I started hearing things during my rounds. Footsteps echoing through the garage, car doors closing, voices. But whenever I'd go to check, there was no one there. I told myself it was just sound carrying weird in the concrete structure. Sound does weird things in parking garages. Echoes, reverberations. It can make you think someone's on one level when they're actually on another. But then I started seeing the car. It was an old sedan, dark blue, maybe black, hard to tell in the bad lighting. It would be parked on the 4th level, always in the same spot, in the back corner. The weird thing was, it was never there when I started my shift, and it was always gone by the time I left at 8 a.m. But during my rounds, between midnight and 6, it would be there. I checked my logs. No one was paying for overnight parking in that spot. The car shouldn't have been there. I tried to get a plate number, but it didn't have plates, just empty frames where the plates should be. One night I decided to look inside. I walked up to it during my 2 a.m. round. The windows were tinted, but I could see through the windshield. The driver's seat was reclined all the way back, like someone was sleeping in there. I knocked on the window. "Hey, you can't sleep here." No response, no movement. I knocked harder. Still nothing. I tried the door handle. It was unlocked. I opened the door. The car was empty. The seat was reclined, but no one was in it. No one was in the back seat either. But the car was running, engine on, heat blasting. That didn't make sense. I'd walked right up to it. I would have heard the engine, but it was silent until I opened the door. I turned the car off and took the keys. I left a note on the windshield saying to come to the booth to retrieve them. No one ever came. The next night, the car was back. Same spot, same reclined seat, engine running. But when I checked the booth, the keys I'd taken were gone. I stopped going near that car after that, but things got worse. During my rounds, I started seeing someone on the upper levels. Just a silhouette, standing near the edge, looking down. At first I thought it was someone from one of the offices working late, but when I'd get up to that level, they'd be gone. This happened multiple times. I'd see them on the 5th level, go up the stairs and find nothing. Then on my next round, I'd see them on the 4th level, then the 3rd. They were getting closer to the ground level, closer to my booth. I started dreading my rounds. I'd put them off as long as possible, but I had to do them. My supervisor would check the logs. One night, around 4 a.m., I was doing my round on the 2nd level when I heard it, a car alarm, coming from the 4th level. I went up to check it out. The alarm was coming from that dark blue sedan, the one that kept appearing. All the doors were open, the trunk was open, the alarm was blaring. I got closer, trying to see if someone had broken into it. That's when I saw what was in the trunk. It was full of clothes, and they were the same clothes I'd been finding left around the garage. The jacket, the backpack, the shoes. All of it was in that trunk. The alarm stopped, just cut off mid-blare. Then I heard breathing, right behind me. I spun around. No one was there, but I could still hear it. Breathing, close, like someone was standing right next to me. I ran. I didn't care about protocol or checking the rest of the garage. I ran straight down to the booth and locked myself inside. I watched the security monitor that showed the entrance. I could see up to the 2nd level from that angle. I didn't see anyone come down. But I could feel it. Something was watching me. I called my supervisor, told him I was leaving. He started to argue, but I hung up on him. I grabbed my stuff and headed for my car. It was parked on the ground level, near the booth. When I got to it, all 4 of my tires were flat. I looked around. The garage was empty, silent, but I could feel eyes on me. I didn't wait to change the tires. I called an Uber and got out of there. I quit the next day. My supervisor said I'd abandoned my post, and he couldn't give me a reference. I didn't care. I found out later that there'd been an incident at that garage years before I worked there. A woman went missing. She'd parked on the 4th level to go to work. Her car was found 3 days later, doors open, engine running. She was never found. Her car was a dark blue sedan. I still have nightmares about that garage. About hearing footsteps in concrete stairwells. About seeing someone standing at the edge of the upper levels looking down. I don't park in parking garages anymore. I don't care how far I have to walk. I'll find street parking. Because I know what's waiting in those upper levels. In the dark corners where the lights don't reach. And I know it's still looking for someone. Well, those were tonight's stories. If you enjoyed them, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and let me know in the comments which one got to you the most. I'll see you soon with more stories.